Hello, my name is Lann. Today we're going to be talking about 5 of the best social media marketing books that you can read to improve your sales and marketing abilities. So the first one I'm going to talk about is The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. So this book was really fun because the author was very kind of straightforward and kind of kicked you in the butt. He pretty much talked about resistance. That was his number one topic throughout the whole entire book. Resistance. You have to battle resistance. He went on to say it was kind of like a devil. It stopped you at every turn. It gave you temptation, and there was only a couple tips to beat it down and put it in submission. And whatever you do, do not enjoy instant gratification. And that really hit home with me because as a social media marketer, when you're making those phone calls and cold calls, the one thing you want to do is give up. I mean, I go back in a couple other videos where I talk about how after making, 200 to 300 phone calls, I didn't have a client. I didn't know what I was doing. I was pitching to the gatekeeper, the secretary, so I had no idea what I was doing. And this book hit home for me because it talked about resistance the whole way, and it talked about how it was draining, emotionally draining. I felt like I wanted to give up, and the book really pushed you through it from beginning to end. It felt like he was literally there just being like, hey, I know it took me 8, he makes a lot of jokes saying like it took him like 7 years to write this book because of a resistance and feeling like he got his butt kicked every time. And that's how I felt making cold calls and everything. I was like, I'm getting killed out here and I just want to give up. But reading the book really got me through it and seeing that my resistance was really just myself holding myself back. And once I started putting down the hours and making the cold calls and improving upon my failures, I actually found a lot of success and battled my demons of resistance. The second book is called FU Money by Dan Lok. Now, Dan Lok, just kind of like the other author, he doesn't care. That's why it's called FU Money. And his book was amazing because it was straightforward and it gave me a confidence that was cocky, but it was real. I mean, the book talked about, or he also, in the book, Dan Lok, his mentor was telling him, hey, Dan, I need you to raise your prices. So Dan was a copyright writer, and he would write texts that would gather leads and conversions for different companies. And he was charging like $1,000 per client. And his mentor at the time said, Dan, that's too low. That's too low. And Dan was like, no, that's fine. And then the mentor was like, no, you need to double it. Double it? And Dan like freaked out, and he doubled it. He made more money, and this mentor told him to double it like 5 times. And eventually Dan was charging $10,000 per client, and he was talking about the confidence it took to ask somebody, it's going to cost $10,000. And he was talking about how he stuttered at the beginning. He was like, it's going to cost you $10,000, and he would stutter the whole time. And those stories that Dan put about his life and about how he built his confidence from scratch, and how even at the beginning he would make people wait a month just to see him, even though he had a full calendar open. It was amazing of how confident he was even at the beginning, and how he built himself slowly over time, starting from nothing and then rose to this $1 million empire. It was inspirational, and I also built my confidence to ask for what I'm worth instead of just being like, I'll take a couple $100s to do something that would take most of my time and also cost at least $5,000. So reading his book really gave me the confidence to up my prices for one, but also up my value and feel more important that this is a $1 million job opportunity. Now, I'm not going to charge $1 million for my services, but I have the potential to scale up to $1 million. And with reading that book, that really gave me the confidence to think like that. Instead of thinking, this service is okay or I'm okay. Instead, now I think, hey, I'm great. I'm here. I'm with the big dogs. I can do this. So the third book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. So this book changed my mindset. So the first two, Confidence and Battling Resistance, this book changed my whole mindset about money and how to earn it and how to keep it and the pillars of business. It blew my mind because I had no idea. So I'll give you a little bit of insight about the book, but you have to read this one. This one, like I said, blew my mind. It was amazing. So this book pretty much makes you think like deeply. It's not those reads that you read and you're like, oh, whatever, I didn't learn anything from it. From the very beginning of the chapter to the very end of the chapter, it was like a gold mine of information that actually was important. It actually gave you the knowledge you needed to succeed in business. Now, I read probably 4 more books by Robert Kiyosaki, and it just expanded my mind even more. So it talked about 4 zones. Now, these are 4 important zones that make a lot of sense once you read the book, but it talks about it briefly. So you have 4 quadrants. So the 4 quadrants are employed, like an employee, self-employed, business owner, and investor. So you have to follow these quadrants to move up in them. So the top tier ones are business owner and investor. The 2 okay ones are employee and self-employed. So to travel through these quadrants, you have to endure each one. So let's say employee is, I'm working for a big business. That's me being an employee. Self-employed would be me having a specific skill that I sell for either monthly retainer or an hourly retainer. In other words, if I wasn't working, then the business would die. So that's kind of self-employed. You're literally the person keeping the business running. A businessman doesn't really have to work in the specific business. The business functions without him and still runs effectively, and he's still getting a very nice cash flow. And cash flow is a word that's thrown around throughout the book, the whole entire book, and it's just the amount of money you're getting that's a positive cash flow. There's positives and negative cash flows. It's pretty much just money you're getting in. You're getting. So the assets that you're getting. So that's a good thing. And then an investor is probably the number one thing everyone wants to be, is where you're investing the money, your cash flow, into other things that will get you more cash flow. So that's the 4 things you need to know in the book, but it goes in more detail and goes into a lot of gold nuggets that you need to know if you're going to be a businessman, an entrepreneur, in real estate, social media marketer, any field of business. You need to know these, because he talks about his $1 million mistakes, and if he knew and followed these 4 quadrants and some business rules his rich dad taught him, then his life would be a little bit easier. But in the book, he still retires at 47, which is mind-blowing. So that is The Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Number 4 is Pitch Perfect by Bill McGowan. And this book was fun because it literally talked about pitching. So it taught you how to pitch anything. It taught you the proper responses. It taught you his mistakes, and it also taught you how to prepare for it, which I thought was fun because I was reading the book and I was like, Pitch Perfect. So I thought it was about baseball, but it was actually about marketing and how to present yourself in a way that you can pitch to anything. Pitch to anyone, I mean. So you can start by saying, okay, listen, I am very interested by this, and I want to move forward because of the value I can give to your company. So it would talk about this, about hand movements, talk about your breathing, talk about your entry, how you should act, energetic, if you make a mistake, how you should own up to it, and just certain things that was very humbly reassuring, because I was doing some of these things and other things I was overcompensating. And just one example that really stood out to me was he was actually going for a big deal. He was trying to close someone for a big big deal. I'm talking like millions of dollars. I think it was a big company. I don't want to say Apple, but it was something similar to that. And he was going, and he completely messed up the time. He thought it was supposed to be at 1 o'clock, and he ended up being an hour late. He tried to get there on time, and what saved him was actually admitting he was wrong. And it was crazy because if it was me, I would have came up with 10,000 excuses, but he literally said, listen, it's my fault. I messed up on the time, but I am committed to this deal. I'm committed to seeing you. I'm committing to bringing the value that I can to your company as soon as possible. Let me make it up to you, and let's meet at this time of your own making, and let's make this right. And him just admitting something, and that's what it talks about in the book, admitting that you're wrong isn't always a sign of weakness. It's a sign of you being human. And that's what the company actually liked. So he actually still got the deal and still made a ton of money by admitting something that we'd all perceive as a weakness, as actually he turned it into a strength. So that's why I really like that book, because I started turning my weaknesses into a more powerful, structured strength. So the last one, number 5, is actually a really long one. It's 48 Laws of Power. So 48 Laws of Power is a whole book upon the biggest mindset change I've ever went through, and that's probably thinking about your influence on the world and your surroundings and the environment that you control and the environment others control. So this book talked about, each law was talking about how you could have power over someone, how they have power of you or perceived power. Like, one of the lessons I thought was really interesting was praising the master. So let's say, for instance, you're in a position of not so much power, perceived power. So you're working for someone and you want to get ahead. So to get ahead, you think, okay, I got to do my best. I have to over-approve. I have to do so much more. But the idea of doing more will make you more of a target. This is all thinking everyone's out to get you, kind of, in a way. So instead, you should lift your boss up by giving him praise and by giving him the opportunity to see you grow in the company, but also make him money and give him the praise he needs, will give the master, in this case, the power to see over everything and also see you as an asset and also see you as a skillful individual to one day move up. So it talked about how you could leverage your master's power with your own perceived power to one day overthrow the master, which is your boss. So it was a very powerful book because it gave you a different perspective of business. So me seeing my competitors or me seeing someone that's doing social media marketing, I don't go out there and say, hey, I'm going to be better than you, you're nothing. Instead, I see them and I go, okay, this is what they're not doing. This is how I can outdo them, and this is how I can be better than them. But I do respect them, and if they come to me for help or whatever, then I'm going to give them help. But I'm also thinking, how can I outdo them? How can I be more powerful in that respect? So it was a very eye-opening book because it was kind of scary, because it really talked about how you could outpower anything. I mean, anyone in any situation. So it's a very long book. I'm going to give you a heads up there. But if you take each law at a time and apply it to your own business, then it's worth the read. It's definitely worth the read. And it makes your company stronger because you are a lot more in control and a lot more powerful because of the read. So those are the 5 books I would recommend any social media marketer read, any businessman read or woman, and any entrepreneur read, because it will change how you perceive the world, perceive money, and most importantly, help you grow as an individual and as someone that's interested in business. And I would also recommend kids read it, because my children, as they get older, will be reading those books, because at 25, it's helped me so much that I can't even explain how amazing it was. But when it comes to marketing and sales, these 5 books dominate all others. Now, there are some really amazing books out there, but for social media marketing especially, these 5 books are amazing. Down below, I'm going to leave links to all the books. They're going to be affiliate links, so if, for instance, if you go down there and you want to buy the book, then you go right ahead. So I will receive a small commission for any book sold. But again, I hope this was helpful. I hope these 5 books will give you the knowledge that I've gotten from them, and I've actually had a lot of fun reading to them. So it was nice either way. And the question of the day, just what is your favorite marketing book? What is your favorite business book? And just comment down below. If you like this video, smack that like button and subscribe and hit the bell icon, because I want you to see every single future video that comes up. Today was about money mindset and keeping your head right and thinking about money. And the future videos will be social media marketing and growth hacks. So I'm here to help you guys. If you have any questions, be sure to comment below. And I'm going to see you guys next time. So have a great day.